Your body's showing up, but your mind checked out last Tuesday. Emily had a checklist for everything: meetings, deadlines, birthdays, groceries, dreams. Everything scheduled, everything controlled. Her phone was always on, her brain never off. She answered emails with one hand and reheated coffee with the other. The irony? She didn't even like coffee. But it made her look busy, important, awake. Everyone thought she was thriving. She was just surviving. Sleep felt like a pit stop, not rest. Weekends felt like commercial breaks between episodes of chaos. She kept saying, "I'm fine." But her body was screaming. Her mind was frozen. One day she stared at the spreadsheet for so long, the cells started to blur. Not metaphorically, literally. She blinked, rubbed her eyes. Nothing changed. The numbers didn't make sense anymore. She wasn't tired. She was depleted. Maybe it's burnout, she thought. But burnout sounded too simple, too trendy. This was something deeper. She felt like a guest in her own life, like she was watching someone else perform the role of Emily, a high-functioning ghost in business casual. Her friends called less, she answered even less. Every invite felt like a chore, every conversation felt like work. She missed laughing, not just emojis, actual belly-aching, ugly face laughing. But she couldn't remember the last time that happened. Even crying felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. There was always another meeting, another quick ask, another thing to prove. One Thursday, she forgot how to spell her own last name while signing a form. She laughed, then panicked. That weekend, she Googled, "Why do I feel nothing? How to fake energy in meetings? Can burnout cause memory loss?" The answers didn't help, but the questions finally felt honest. Her boss once praised her for being a machine. Machines break too. One morning, she sat on her bed for 42 minutes, fully dressed, just sitting. No phone, no TV, no sound. She was too exhausted to rest, too wired to relax. Sleep became a stranger. So did peace. The final straw wasn't dramatic, no breakdown in the office, no scene. Just a question from a colleague, "Are you okay?" And she didn't know how to lie anymore. Tears came before words. That night she wrote a resignation letter, not to send, just to see if she could. She titled it, "Dear Life, I Want You Back." She saved it, closed her laptop, went outside and stared at the sky for the first time in months. Stars still existed. Who knew? That was day one, not of quitting, not of recovery. Day one of remembering she was human. And humans need more than achievement. They need joy, rest, meaning, space to breathe. The next morning, she took a walk before opening her inbox. Small win, massive rebellion. She didn't burn bridges, she built boundaries. She didn't vanish, she reclaimed. Because healing isn't always quitting. Sometimes it's choosing you, loudly, unapologetically, one small decision at a time. So if you're reading this, frozen in your kitchen, crying in silence, staring blank at a blinking cursor, you're not broken, you're burnt out, and you deserve to come back to yourself. Emily did. Not in one leap, but in one whisper. I miss me. The walk turned into a ritual, not for fitness, not for goals, just to move, to feel air again, to prove she still had a body beneath the burnout. Emily started journaling again. At first, it was just bullet points, then full sentences, then emotions. She wrote things like, "I don't remember who I was before this job. Why does silence feel scary? When did I stop dreaming?" The questions weren't comfortable, but they were hers. Work didn't stop demanding, but Emily started answering less often. No became a boundary, not a betrayal. She muted chats after 6 p.m., took her full lunch breaks, stopped apologizing for being human. Some people noticed. They called her distant, selfish. She called it healing. The more space she made, the more she remembered. Sunsets through the window, books that made her cry, songs that made her dance in the kitchen. She even started cooking again, badly, but joyfully. Burnout had stolen flavor from her life. She was taking it back. Not in one big act, but in micro moments of defiance. One morning, her boss sent a "Where are you?" message at 7:41 a.m. She read it at 9:12 a.m. With a warm croissant and zero guilt. She still did her job, but she stopped sacrificing herself on the altar of productivity. Emily learned something no one teaches in school. Being busy is not the same as being alive. There is no trophy for who suffers the quietest, and exhaustion is not a badge of honor. Her therapist once said, "Burnout is what happens when you give more than you have, longer than you should, to people who never asked you to stop." Emily finally understood. She wasn't weak. She was wounded, not from a lack of resilience, but from an overdose of it. She kept showing up for a job that stopped showing up for her. She thought loyalty meant martyrdom. Turns out, it means listening to your body before it screams. She deleted the resignation letter, not because she changed her mind, but because she didn't need a dramatic exit. She needed a softer entry into her next life. She started freelancing, one client at a time. Less income, more peace. For the first time, she built something that didn't require her to bleed for it. Was it scary? Absolutely. But fear was no longer the loudest voice in her head. Hope was whispering now. You can start over at 28, or 34, or 47. You can want different. You can choose different. And you don't need permission to begin. Emily is not a success story yet, but she's no longer a warning sign. She wakes up not to prove her worth, but to enjoy her morning. She doesn't live for Fridays anymore. She lives for herself. And that's more than enough. Some days she still struggles. Healing isn't linear. There are moments where doubt creeps in. Did I make a mistake? Should I have stayed? But then she looks around. The quiet mornings, the slow coffee, the steady breath. No alarms shouting at 6 a.m. No unread emails pulling at her peace. Just life, unpolished, underrated, undeniably hers. She started reconnecting with people, not networking, actual connection. A friend she hadn't spoken to in a year messaged her. "You sound lighter," she was. Not because everything was perfect, but because she stopped living like a performance. She let go of the version of herself she built to survive and started becoming the one who could thrive. She began painting again, not for likes, just for herself. She took naps without guilt, took walks without podcasts. She gave herself permission to be unproductive and still valuable. One afternoon, she watched the rain hit the windows for an hour. She didn't check her phone once, and for the first time in years, she felt peace without earning it. That's the thing about burnout. It tricks you into thinking you're the problem, that your inability to keep going is weakness. But maybe the system is broken, not you. Maybe slowing down isn't failure. Maybe it's wisdom. Maybe rest is sacred. Emily doesn't hustle anymore. She moves with intention. She creates with joy. She lives, not to escape work, but to embrace life. There's no morning rush, just sun, silence, and the steady return of self. She doesn't have a 5-year plan, but she has today. And for now, that's everything. So if you feel like you're unraveling quietly in a world that only claps for achievement, you're not weak, you're wise. And somewhere in that stillness, your real life is waiting. Emily found hers, and you can too. Emily started teaching others what she had to learn the hard way. Not in a preachy way, not with slides or webinars, just with honesty, with truth. She posted her first blog post titled, "You Don't Have to Burn Out to Belong." She thought no one would read it, but they did. Hundreds of people messaged her, "This is me. I thought I was alone. Thank you for putting this into words." That's when she realized she wasn't just healing herself, she was helping others feel seen. That gave her purpose again. Not productivity, not praise, but purpose. She started leading from a different place, not from ambition, from compassion. When a friend said they were tired, she didn't say same. She said, "Tell me more." She didn't glamorize the grind anymore. She celebrated boundaries, rest days, saying no. Her worth was no longer measured in output, but in alignment. She was finally living a life that fit her soul, not just her resume. There was one final shift. Emily forgave herself for staying too long, for silencing her needs, for believing she had to earn love by overworking. That forgiveness cracked open something deeper: freedom. The freedom to change, to evolve, to choose softness over hustle, to believe she was already enough. She printed her old resignation letter and tucked it in a drawer, a relic of the version of her that couldn't imagine another way. Now she wakes up with curiosity instead of dread. She checks in with herself before checking her phone. And she knows, if the world demands too much again, she won't shrink to fit it. She'll expand, she'll rise, she'll walk away if she has to, because now she remembers who she is, and she's never going back to forgetting. Stay tuned for part 2, where Emily faces the fear of starting over, and the people who don't understand her choice. If you've ever felt the weight of doing everything right and still feeling wrong inside, you're not alone. Hit subscribe, because your story might just begin the moment you say, "I deserve better."